Hello, everyone. This is, oh my goodness, it's dark. Oh, there we go. This is Jenica from Psychology for Photographers. Thank you for coming. And I am really excited today to talk about target clients. So if you have any questions at all, please put them in the chat box. I'm also going to pull up my email here so that I can monitor. If you have any trouble asking a question, you can just email it to me. But I wanted to spend some real time answering one-on-one questions about this because it's the biggest mistake I see is I talk to people and they're like, they have this or that question. What should I put on my website? What should I do for my marketing? And I always immediately ask, well, tell me about your target client. And then they look at me with a blank stare. And I know for a fact they've taken a lot of business courses. They're super smart. Most everyone who follows my blog is a serial learner. You guys are information junkies just like me. So I know that you've come across this idea of having a target client before, and it is a little bit of work to do things like send people emails and everything. But once you have that in place, absolutely everything else you do becomes easier. So, and it doesn't matter actually what kind of business you have or where your business is located. I had just this weekend, somebody emailed me who's in a completely different industry from photography. And they were asking me, how can I get more people to look at my website? And of course, my immediate question is going to be, well, who do you want to be looking at your website? What are their goals? What's their language? What are you trying to get them to do? Because if you can't answer those questions, then I can't tell you how to get more of them to look at your website. And I have a funny example of this. So my son, who, when he was 3, went through this super picky phase with food, and he just didn't want to eat anything. And so, of course, I started by just getting him to taste things. And so he knew that it made me very happy when he would taste something new. He didn't have to eat it. He didn't have to swallow it. He didn't have to have the whole thing for dinner, but he did have to taste it. And so he understood that I was very motivated to get him to taste new things. Well, one day he wanted chocolate. And he knew there was some in the pantry. And so instead of coming to me and saying, Mom, can I have chocolate? Because he knew I would say, oh, you have to wait until later after dinner or something like that. He came to me and asked if he could taste some chocolate. And I was like, oh my gosh, this 3-year-old understands strategy really, really well because he understands what I'm motivated by. I'm very motivated to get him to taste things. He understands the language I use around it. I use the word taste whenever I want him to try something new. And he knew that I would be much less likely to reject his request if he framed it in a way that made it suited to my goals instead of just him. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish that everybody thought of things this way. I wish that instead of just asking people, hey, hire me, they looked at what are people's goals and they phrased it in terms of what their goals were. You'd get a lot more requests. And yes, I did let him have a taste of chocolate because he asked that way because I thought it was really smart. So anyway, please, Tammy says, just in time. I wish I were that creative. Yeah, I know. I actually kind of wish I were as creative as he is sometimes too. But anyway, so really this is just about what are our people after? Let's learn more about that and let's put everything that we're trying to, all our outreach, our websites, our Instagram, our Facebook, let's just make sure that it's getting at their goals just as much as it's getting at our goals because we spend a lot of time trying to serve our own goals. But we really need to be serving theirs and we'll be more successful. So please put your questions in the chat box. And I'm going to start by answering a question that I got over email. But I really want to spend most of the time talking to you guys that are here. Thank you so much for coming. So the first question, and I'm going to have this dirty little question mark sign because my assistant's going to go through and timestamp for us where the questions were so you can, the replays better. But the first question I got while I'm waiting for you guys to ask questions in the chat box. The first question is, somebody said, okay, I got this idea of like, we need to send emails to past clients and ask them questions and then they reply. Like, I understand that. And I've heard a lot of other people say that too, but people don't reply. Like, I'll send the email and people don't reply. And so what I sent back to her was some questions. And I want to share the questions I'm asking with you because I think asking past clients things is really key to being able to understand where your target client's coming from. So we want to get that feedback. So the first thing is when you're emailing past clients, are you engaging with them personally before you make a request? So if you just send them an email and say, hey, I've got some questions, blah, 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 we are also used to be like, you know, those pings that are like, hey, take out my survey. Hey, take my survey. Hey, answer a few questions for us. Hey, we care about your opinion. Like, all of that is nice, but we're so used to being pinged by that like we're not going to take the time to express our inner thoughts to just everyone. We get those requests all the time. Time is limited. We're not going to answer them. But if you take the time to, like I did at the beginning of my email template, say, hey, Jane, like, how are you doing? How are your kids? How's Dave? Did you go to the basketball game this weekend? I was thinking about you guys because I remembered you said how much you like basketball, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, I was also thinking about you because I saw this. I was going through my old photos and I saw this photo from your shoot and I loved it so much. Look at it. And you can even insert a photo from their shoot into the email. And then you, like, whatever you do, connect with them personally. Spend a few sentences. Don't just say, hey, how are you doing? And then get right into asking your questions. If you're going to make a request from someone, like, take time to connect with them and remind them of why they like working with you. Remind them of how you're a warm, friendly person. And then when you get to the request, it's not just like, oh, you know, it's just another person asking for my opinion. It's like, oh, yeah, she really remembers me. He really remembers me. Like, they care about me. They remembered all the things. Yeah, sure, I'll help you out. Okay, so the first thing is make sure you take time to connect personally when you send someone an email. The other couple of things that I was very deliberate when I wrote that email template for you to send out. One of the things I put in there is I asked her, like, hey, can I get your opinion on something really quick? Like, if you ask someone for, like, oh, like, we want your thoughts, like, then, like, oh, now I have to sit and compose my inner thoughts and it's going to take time. But if you say, can I get your opinion on something? We're very used to firing off opinions very quickly in our world today. Everybody loves giving their opinion. And so if you use that word, people are like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll give you my opinion. By the way, this works too if you ever, like, are writing on Facebook, like, hey, where's the best place to stay when I go to Disneyland? Like, if you're ever crowdsourcing something on your own Facebook, like, hey, what's the best vacuum cleaner to buy, whatever, you're going to get a lot more replies if you start that with, hey, can I get your opinion on something? What's the best place to do this? Blah, 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 blah. People love giving their opinions more than they love just answering questions, I promise. So try that out. It's going to work. Anyway, so ask for people's opinions. The next piece is frame it as they're going to be helping you and also helping other people, which is true. I'm not making this up. I'm not just like pretending for the sake of getting people to answer. Like, they are. They're helping you make sure other people feel secure, making sure they feel calm, making sure they have information. They're helping their fellow parents, their fellow senior moms, their fellow pet owners, whoever it is that you target. They're helping them get the information that they need. And if you tell them you're going to be helping other people, we're all conditioned to want to help other people. And so if you do spend the time, you know, you're going to be helping other people. People like that feeling. So I hope that makes sense. So starting out by connecting, asking for people's opinion. The third one is frame it so that they're helping someone else. And the last one is you can use some language that says something to the effect of, like, can I get your opinion on something really quick? So you're implying that you don't have to take a long time to, like, answer all these questions. Like, it can just be really quick. Or you can say, you know, you don't have to write a lot. Just give me your first thoughts. Or stream of consciousness answer is fine. I just want to hear what your first thoughts were. So give them an out that it's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay if it's bullet pointed. It's okay if they just sort of, you know, fire off a quick reply, because sometimes those unfiltered answers are actually better than if they sat and composed a big long thing where they were overthinking it, because sometimes those answers can be kind of sterile. So just give them something in there that says it's okay if it's quick, and you'll get a lot more replies. Like, and you can even say something like, oh, like, next time you're at the dentist's office, reply, or just give me a quick reply. So don't set the expectation too high. Another one is, that's related to that is when you ask your questions, don't say, what's the most memorable moment? Or what is the best thing? Like, don't ask for any superlatives, like, what is the best, what is the most? Because then they have to sit and evaluate, like, okay, well, what were all the things? Okay, which one was the best one? Where is this one? Like, it involves too much thought. So instead of asking for the most or the best or the one thing that makes them have to think through and evaluate and narrow down, just say, what are some things that you remember? What are some of the great things you remember? What are some of the best things? So, like, don't ever ask for just one answer. That actually takes more time. just say, what are some of the things, or tell me about, make it more open-ended so that they can just start talking. Okay, so I hope that helps you get a lot more replies. I should probably do a blog post about this, but it was very deliberately worded so that you would get replies. And I think if you make sure that you're connected, make sure it doesn't take up too much of their time, make sure they know it's helping other people, and that ever-present, okay, I'm getting your opinion on this, I think you're going to get a lot of replies to those emails you send out. So I don't have any questions in the chat box. Tammy, do you have any questions? I'm waiting. I mean, I can talk about this all day, but I'm really here for you guys. So, a million. Okay, well, hit me. We have time. I'm here for a couple hours, so. You can also paste, like if you have, like I really mean it, just ask whatever questions you have. You can paste, like if you've already emailed people, you can paste their answers into the chat box and say, like, what do I do with this? You don't have to, there are no dumb questions here. I'm really happy to just talk through whatever, because I think this is a place where people get stuck, and I don't want you guys to be stuck. Let me think of what is another, okay. Tammy asked a question, yay! Thanks, Tammy. Question, once we get the replies, how do we transform those answers into information that is useful to us? Ooh, great question. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is gather them all, right? So whatever you do, like a spreadsheet or a Google Doc, doesn't matter. I would put it someplace where it's easy to access, because you want to add to this as you go. Like you want to keep soliciting information every now and then from people, and you don't have to like find your old stuff. It's really useful if you put like the date on it so that you can see how things evolve over time. That's really helpful. So first thing is gather it together, and then the first thing you want to do is look for what are the common themes. So if you asked, did you have any worries, or tell me about the worries or hesitations or concerns you might have had before hiring a photographer. Okay, you want to go through and you want to highlight all of the consistent themes. So if everybody says, oh, I was worried about having enough time, you want to highlight that. If everyone says, oh, I didn't think my partner would be on board, or my husband or my spouse or whatever, you want to highlight that. So you just want to highlight what are the things that people echoing across all of their replies, because that tells you I absolutely have to address these things on my website, through my emails, through my blog, through my marketing. Because if I don't, people are going to continue to have this problem. People are going to continue to have these hesitations, and I'm doing nothing about it. It's just going to continue to prevent them from booking me. And so I need to say something about it. So that's the first thing you look for, is what are people actually caring about? And then you go to your website. Okay, am I answering these questions anywhere? Am I discussing this? Am I bringing this up? Am I giving them solutions? Because if you're not, you're relying on them to do all that work, and people don't like doing work. They're not going to do it. So you want to do as much of it for them as you can. The next step while you're doing that is you want to circle, and what are the specific words they're using to describe their problems. Okay, so just like I told you the story about my 3-year-old who, instead of asking for chocolate, he said, can I have a taste? Because he knew that I was really motivated to get him to taste new things. If your person says like, oh, my kids are, my kids are pills, they're not gonna cooperate, or oh, my kids are little terrors, like whatever, like if more than one client uses the specific word, you want to use that on your website. In an FAQ section, you can say, you might think my kids are little terrors. They're not going to cooperate. Like you can say it in a joking way, of course, but you want to use the exact words they're thinking. So circle those specific words. If there's anything that gets used more than once, or any phrase like waste of time, waste of money, you can put that in an FAQ section. Like Irresistible Website talks about this. You should have a should be asked questions section, not just a frequently asked questions. And you can put that in there like, oh, this, you might be thinking, oh, this is a waste of time, or something like that. Reflect that actual wording back to them. Okay. And the last piece is anything that just stands out. If someone was particularly honest with you about something, you want to list that among the things that you want to put on your website. So for example, most people might say something like, oh, like if you're a pet photographer, oh, people are going to think I'm weird. Like they're going to walk into my house and say, why are there pictures of your dog everywhere? They might be the only person who actually explicitly mentioned that. But if it stands out to you as particularly true, or you've ever had that thought yourself, or you kind of had this inkling that other people might be concerned about it too, add that to your list, even if more than one person doesn't say it. Sometimes you'll just get one golden person who's particularly honest, and that's worth adding to that list. So really, in terms of transforming it into information that's useful to you, what you're doing is you're making a list of concerns, and you're making a list of words that people use to describe those concerns, and that is what is going to go on your website. That is what you're going to use blog posts to address, etc. So feel free to follow up on that if you have any questions. And Tammy follows up. I'm going to get to your question in a second, Simon. Thanks for waiting. But Tammy says, should we continue to solicit information from the same clients? I feel like after the second request for the opinions, they're on to me, if that makes sense. I would just get it once. And then if you have a follow-up question, I would respond to them personally. So, for example, you email Tracy and you say, here's my questions. And then she gives you a particularly good example. My follow-up to her would be like, hey, you mentioned this. Can you tell me a little bit more about this? Or you know what? I've heard other people say this. Can you describe this in a little bit more detail? Because I want to make sure I really understand it. So I wouldn't ask people to fill out a survey type thing more than once, unless it was years apart. If you asked them last in 2015 and they have come to you a few times since then it's okay to ask them again because they've had new experiences. But asking them the same person about their experiences over and over will probably have diminishing returns on how helpful that is because it's further and further into the past. So I would just follow up. The only exception is if you're asking a question specifically now that it's 3 years from when you've had your photos, do you still use them, or how do you still use them, or how do you see them now? If you're asking a different question and it's really specific to the time frame that they're at now, I think it's okay to go talk to that same person again, because you're not just being repetitive and saying again, hey, what was the best thing? It's really specific to their current experience. And you can explain, I want people to know that these are long lasting and valuable. Can you just give me any insight onto your experience with that? I think it's okay. So that's a great question. All right. Simon said, oh, this is okay. So I'm really glad you asked this, Simon. Yay. Question. Okay. Any tips for helping with profiling potential clients when you're absolutely not in the same demographic? Asking as a middle-aged man. Okay, so Simon, I don't know what kind of photography you do. I don't know if you do weddings. I don't know if you do family photography, or if you're I'm not sure what you're doing, but you feel free to let me know. But I think that the approach of emailing people and just saying, look, I want to be able to help people with their real-time concerns. Will you please help me out with that? I don't think people are gonna be like, oh, you're a middle-aged man, I'm not gonna answer that question. People understand if you're doing all those things I mentioned at the beginning, if you're explaining to people you're gonna help me help other people, you're gonna help other people have the information they need right when they're making a decision. I'm asking for your opinion on something. We'll tell our opinions to anybody. You ask me for my opinions about cheese, I don't care who you are. I'll tell you all my opinions about cheese. So it doesn't really matter if you're asking someone for their opinion, what it is you're asking about. People just love sharing opinions. And also if you take time to connect with them. So there's lots of middle-aged men in my life in various capacities. I work with some of them. I have great relationships with them. So I think that that's the thing you have to focus on, is if you start from that relationship, and if you do weddings and portraits. Okay, so if you're talking to a bride, okay, hey, I really loved your wedding. This and this was meaningful to me. This really stood out to me. I thought this was special that you did this with your ceremony. I don't see that a lot. I mean, that's a compliment because you're a wedding photographer. You see a lot of weddings. So any of those insights you can offer to them, your thing was special because they're going to be like, oh, well, that's really nice. And then they're going to be more open to answering those questions because you've established that connection, or hopefully refresh the connection that you've already established when you worked together. If you haven't had clients yet, it seems like you have, but I'm just answering more generally because that's a thing that people who are new to the business often have. Oh, I don't have any past clients. How can I get this information? You can still talk to people who are like your target clients. It should probably be someone you have a relationship with. But if there's someone who is engaged or getting married, or who has recently gotten married is probably the best one to pick. You're not trying to poach anyone else's clients. You're not trying to do any of that. But you just want, if you come to someone and say, hey, I want to know what the experience is like for you to search for a wedding photographer, for you to search for a family photographer. Can I get your opinion on a couple of things? People are more than happy to answer those questions. If they feel like you care about them and their information is going to be helpful to someone else, they'll usually be pretty honest. So I hope that helps, Simon. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask. Okay. Carrie. Hi, Carrie. Carrie asks, on my website, I target adults, bilingual professionals wanting to reduce their accents and improve their speech. Cool. Any recommendations for how to tie in what clients reveal to me via empathy content? Okay, so I think, are you asking for, I'm not sure if you're asking like for blog content ideas or just in general how to have empathy for them. What I would do is I would find out like what are some situations that they experience regularly where having an accent or having problems with like knowing the exact words or the exact idioms like is either a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit embarrassing for them. And you can start by saying like, you know, people like if you personally have never experienced that, it's a little tougher. But if you have, like if you've ever been to another country or just visited somewhere where you had an accent, you can say, you know what, when I visited this place, here are the problems. Like I went to the store, I was trying to talk to someone, they had no idea what I was asking about. You can also make it funny. Like one time when I was in Tunisia, I asked someone in Arabic I was looking for a sun hat, but I had no idea what the word for sun hat was. And I tried to say big hat, but people gave me a really weird look and it was really clear that I had not asked the right thing. So you can just like share a personal experience. Like I had this experience once, you might have experienced this too. Or if it's more serious, like if they're experiencing some sort of like xenophobia or racism, you can get into that as well. Just say like, you might have experienced this and this and this, or people tell me that this has happened to them. You can tell a first person story if you get a permission from someone and say, you know, John told me he was at the store, this and this and this happened. And he came away wanting to make sure that he was never in that position again. And so the first thing I worked on with John was this and this and this. And if you have the similar concern, this is fixable. It's something we can do something about. And you don't have to worry about it anymore. So just using those stories, like actually telling them, getting permission to share them, sharing your own if you have them. It's one thing to say to someone, oh, I'm going to make sure you don't have an accent anymore, or I'm going to make sure that you always have the right words to say in the moment. People are like, yeah, like you're just making that claim. Can you help me? That's the question in anyone's mind when they're looking at your website, by the way. Like, yeah, they have a great portfolio. Yeah, they've helped other people. Can they help me? Everyone thinks their situation is unique, which to a degree it is, but they're also common problems that everyone has. And so if you can get in there and give an example and say, this person experienced this, and here's what we did to make sure that didn't happen again. That empathy piece for like, yeah, that was really hard or rough translates into like, oh, okay, trust, like you can actually help me. Carrie says, my goal is to increase my target clients' awareness of their difficulties instead of telling them. Oh, that's interesting. Can you give me an example of that? Like give me an example. Like, are you saying, like, oh, have you ever thought about how, like, when you're at the store, you might be stressed out thinking about going to the store because you might need something and you don't know how to ask for it. Like, you could just identify little stressors or experiences they might have. Like, oh, has this ever happened to you? Like, you're kind of stressed out about having to call the cable company and ask for something, and you don't really know why, but you just keep putting it off. Like, have you ever considered maybe it's that the last time you did it, this and this happened? Like, you can just like get them thinking about like, when was the last time they experienced discomfort, and saying like, you know, maybe it was because this, maybe it was because you weren't totally confident that you could do this, and then talk to them about it. Carrie says to help them reflect how their poor speech comes across to listeners. That's a challenge because you don't want to make people feel bad, right? You don't want to make people feel like, oh, well, you're not good at speaking English, so we're going to fix that. I would actually focus on, here's an example. I keep using the store one just because that's the one I have the most personal experience with when trying to speak another language. So you focus on their experience first, because that's the thing that matters the most. Like, have you ever been at the store and you were feeling like a little bit stressed out and you realized it was because you needed something but didn't know how to ask for it? Or like you did go ask for it and the person was kind of like confused or rude to you and you just thought, oh, why is this so hard? Then you can give that. So once you've empathized with their experience, then you can start building empathy for the person on the other end of the interaction. You know, imagine someone comes to you and asks you for something at your place of business, and you don't quite know what they're asking. It's hard to understand what they're saying, and you want to help them, but you just can't. Like, you're not really sure what they're asking. You know, it's tough for them too. So start with your empathizing with them, and then get them to empathize with the other person. Like, oh, like, put yourself in their shoes. Sometimes it's hard to understand. Like, have you ever been in a position where you've tried to explain something to someone, or you've tried to ask someone questions and they haven't been able to answer? That's tough. And so what you want to do is reduce that experience of difficulty for other people, and in return, then always come back to them, always focus on how it benefits them. And in return, you know, your life's going to be easier. You'll feel more confident in different situations. You'll have less friction, because people, like, that vague, like, annoyance that people get when they're confused is going to come up less often. So I would encourage them to empathize with other people, ask them if they've ever been in that situation too, but always come back to them and how, like, it benefits them, because otherwise it could make people feel bad. And that's especially not something you want to do with, like, people who are learning a language, because that's stressful enough. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah, Carrie says, love your idea for sharing stories of what clients have told me and how I helped. Empathy facilitates trust. Yeah, for sure. It for sure does. Okay. Scrolling back up. Lenka. Welcome, Lenka. What is your opinion on having an ideal client in terms of a very specific niche? For example, I am a photographer of growing families, which includes maternity, newborn, and family. Is this okay since it's related, or is it making it harder in terms of speaking to the target client? Okay, that is a fantastic question. So you actually a lot of people face the same issue. So you are in good company, that a lot of photographers do multiple things. Some people do things that aren't even related. I've met people who do weddings and seniors. They do weddings in the summer and seniors in the falls, like high school seniors. So you're not alone. And the biggest thing that I would say to you is that maternity, newborn, and family, those really do have a separate set of concerns. So they might have a common thread, like you're talking in this case probably to moms. I'm guessing most people target women, not to stereotype, it's just how things tend to go. So you're targeting moms. But a mom who has 2 kids has a different set of concerns and a different set of things that will resonate with her than someone who is about to have her very first baby. And so what I would do, and this sounds like a lot of work, but it really truly is not, is I would do 3 sets of target client work. So I would do one for people who are about to have their first baby, like people who are pregnant, maternity. And then I would do one of people who, well, that kind of covers pregnancy and newborn, really. But you could talk to people who had newborn photography done with you recently. The weird thing about newborns is that you don't know before you have a baby what your concerns are going to be once the baby's here. Like, I had no way of knowing how exhausted I was going to be. Like, people told me I was going to be tired, but like, you can't really know it till you've had the baby and you're in it. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to leave the house. I don't want to think about anything. I can't organize anything. I left the shower running for an hour this morning because I just forgot about it. Like, you don't want to like scare people. So, but that moment when they're in their pregnancy, because they're probably planning their newborn session during pregnancy, is probably good. So maybe you only need to do 2 target clients. But I would do a separate one for families, because moms of like kids who are old enough to run around don't have the exact same concerns as moms of babies. So the pregnancy one, people could be concerned like, oh, I don't look very good. Like, how can I get photos taken where I look good? Like, maybe my skin is swollen, maybe I have preeclampsia, like whatever's going on. I don't look my normal self. I don't really want to have photos taken. I'm uncomfortable with my body. Like, all of those concerns you want to talk to. And then separately with like families, like, yes, moms have those concerns too, but it might show up differently. They probably use different language around it. They also probably have concerns about like, oh my gosh, it's just so much time to organize. I got to buy outfits for everyone. I have to convince my spouse to be on board. Different sets of concerns on your website. Now, in terms of using that information, like it's one thing to gather it. In terms of using information, I really suggest having 2 separate areas where people get information. So rather than having like one long page where you're like, hey, are you pregnant? Blah, 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 blah. Hey, do you have kids? Blah, 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 blah. You want people to just come to your homepage and know right where to click. Hey, are you expecting or do you already have a family? Even if your tagline is something like photography for growing families, you can have like a quiz question like, hey, where are you currently? Expecting a baby, enjoying family life already. And then they just go straight to the experience of where they are currently. And because those are the questions and concerns that are going to be top of mind. And those are the ones you're going to want to reflect back when they're making their buying decision. So I hope that makes sense. Perfect. Okay. Tammy asks, once we compose our target client avatar, what are some ways we can use that in marketing? I've been doing targeted Facebook ads, but how do I target XYZ in other marketing? So that it sort of becomes like your target client avatar should become sort of the core for what you're doing. So instead of saying like, oh, I'm doing a Facebook ad, what should I talk about? The question you want to shift your thinking toward is, let's say you named your target client, I'm just making up names today. Let's say you named your target client Maxine. So you want to think like, okay, well, what kind of ad would Maxine click on? Okay, so I don't know anything about your target client, so I'm just gonna have to make something up. But Maxine, she's super busy. I want her to come in for family portraits, but she is concerned about is she gonna have time to like buy everyone's clothes and make sure everyone matches and make sure everyone looks good? Okay, so your Facebook ad, instead of just being like, hey, come have family photos taken, your ad can go to whatever you want it to. It can go to a guide. You can say, hey, want to visit one website and have all of your family photo outfits done in one click or something like that. Let me give you 3 tips on how to dress your whole family for family photos in 30 minutes or less, or something like that. Okay, so a question, you can ask the question like, are you concerned about this? Let me show you how to do this in 30 minutes or less. And then they click on your ad, and instead of just dumping them on your homepage, you give them a guide, give her some tips like, oh, this website has cool outfits for kids of all ages. So all you have to do is pick one color and 2 patterns or something like that. And like just show them step by step, like, okay, give them rules to work with. Okay, you want to pick one color, you want to pick 2 patterns, go to this specific website and you'll have everything you need. Or if you're doing something like how to go through your own closet and pick something, okay, you could say, start with a person whose outfits are hardest to find. It's probably yours or your spouse's. Pick an outfit that you feel really great in. Okay, now what is the color of the outfit? Now go to your kids' closets and look for something in just that color. If you don't have something, then go to this website and order it. But like you want to give just people really specific rules. It's like start with this, then move to this. And then at the bottom you have a call to action. Like, do you want more help? Like, contact me. Or are you ready to book a family session? Let me take this off your plate. Clients of mine get this and this and this. I help them at every step along the way to make sure every single piece of this is easy. And then you give them the call to action to book or to call or whatever it is your process is. I think it's really important to just start by thinking, what is her headspace before when she looks at the ad, like before she's looked at your website, if you're doing Facebook ads. What is it she's concerned about? Because if you can echo those concerns, that's when you want to go back to your target client avatar or, the dream sheets or whatever it is you filled out and look at, okay, what were your concerns before you hired a photographer? Look at those. Look at the things that you listed that people echoed across. If they're worried about, wardrobes, maybe they're worried about something else. Maybe they're worried about their kids behaving. That's a perennial one. If you're worried about your kids behaving, let me give you 3 tips on what not to do. And that's your Facebook ad. And that goes to a landing page. Again, you give 3 tips what not to do. Like, don't bribe your kids beforehand. The session is the fun thing, not the ice cream afterward, like whatever it is. And the 3rd tip can be something like, ultimately it's about the photographer. who you hired. Like, oh, speaking of kids, there's mine. Ultimately, it's about the photographer that you hired. And, you know, are they asking the people to cooperate? Like, do they expect them to be perfect? Or are they going to be a fun-loving person who can just roll with whatever you show up with? I'm that kind of a person. Here's how I handle that. So you can give them specific tips that coordinate to what are their actual real-time concerns. And the last part is just a call to action of some kind that just naturally flows from what you just gave them. So I think that's one classic way, as people are very interested in having their problem solved. People are very interested in seeing something that proposes a solution to the exact thing they're worried about. So I would make your Facebook marketing headlines target those specific things. I hope that helps. Let's see. Somebody had a question. Where'd it go? Oh, Tammy says, slightly related question. If we have different niches in our business, for example, photography, weddings versus seniors, should we have different websites so we can better empathize with each client? Okay, it really is, these days, like, as long as your like graphic design is consistent, people may or may not notice if they go to a different website or just to one section within the same website. But the answer is I really would, especially if it's something that's completely different, like weddings versus high school seniors. Those are completely different life phases. People have completely different concerns. I would have at the very least separate parts of your website, again, where they come in and they pick where they're going to go. Like, hey, are you engaged? Go here. Hey, are you a rising senior? Go here. Or a mom of a rising senior? Go here. And then whether or not it's a separate domain is sort of just a question of how you want to organize things and how you personally want to have your portfolio. But, you know, people see that you do more than one thing, which is good. But then they get shunted right to the thing, like, here's what you're thinking. Here's your concerns. Here are the things I do to address your concerns. So I would at minimum have separate areas of your website. I actually did this with a destination photographer once who photographed families, but she had to have slightly separate messages for people who were visiting, like people who were coming as a destination versus people who actually lived in that location. Because those two groups, they're similar, like they were both families, but they have different concerns, right? If you're flying in with your family, you have a completely different questions on your mind if you're unfamiliar with the territory than if you live here. And so what we did for her, because it happened to work, she was a very visual person, her website was set up very visually, we just had a side-by-side info thing where it was all parallel. But we had a separate, you know, like at the top, there was a question like, do you live here, you know, or do you live on island? And like, are you flying in? And then we had like questions and everything. So people could see back and forth, you know, this person's concerns versus this person's concerns, but they could also just like focus in on the one that was related to them. And I think that some of it, she had great results from her website. And that I think it not only did it really hone in on one person, like it didn't make the people who lived there feel neglected because she's only talking about, you know, flying in and jet lag and blah, blah, blah. But it also showed the people, like the overall effect was like, wow, she really understands like what it's like to be a mom and what concerns, like she understands that my concerns here would be different than my concerns here. And it just made her look really in touch, and she's getting great results from that site. So, whether or not it's a separate website is really just a matter of layout and clarity. The biggest thing you want is clarity. Can people just zone in on what's relevant to them and ignore everything else without doing too much work? So whether that's a separate site, same page, clarity is the guiding principle there. Okay. I think I've gotten all the questions that are in the chat right now. Please keep them coming. I'm just looking through, making sure I didn't miss anything while I was scrolling. I think I've gotten everything. Okay, I got an email, so I'm going to check and see. It's going to be like a... Oh, no, I didn't get another question. Okay. Where else can I help? Like, feel free to like post or paste things in. I'm happy to talk about whatever you want. Let me think of another commonly asked question. Oh, wait, Holly has a question. Holly says, have you already talked about how to get info when you don't have any previous clients? Sorry, I'm gonna start over. Have you already talked about how to get info when you don't have any previous clients and you don't know who they would be? So you're in a small town and you're documentary family photography. Okay. I did a little bit, but I can talk about it again specific to your situation. So there's a couple things you can do. The first one is to pick people who you would like to work with. So it can be people whose personalities you click with, people who you know value photography. You don't want to just like ask on Facebook, like just ask any old person, because you might have like a really like, you know, frugal with money person reply and you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to be concerned about this, and that's not true. So pick a few people who you would like to work with, who you know, and start by asking those same questions. So start by asking them, what is it that you're thinking about when you go to hire a family photographer? Have you hired family photographers in the past? Like, what was that like for you? What did you like? What did you not like? What concerns do you have, like when you think about your specific kids in a family photography session? So you can just ask them, like start getting information, like what are people thinking about? The cool thing is, most people's concerns tend to be the same across the board. Like I've been working with photographers for like coming up on 8 years now. And there's pretty much a common list of things that people are worried about when it comes to family photography. They're worried about, are their kids going to behave? Are they going to have time? Like, when are they going to fit this in? They're worried about getting their spouse or partner on board, because usually it's one person who is like thinking about hiring the photographer and the other person's like not involved in that decision-making process at all. And so when they come to them and say, hey, I'm thinking about hiring so-and-so, they're like, they charge how much, blah, blah, blah. And they seem not on board. It's really because they just haven't been part of that process at all. Like if you're shopping for cars, but only one spouse is, and comes and says, I think we should buy this, the other one's gonna be like, wait, what? Like, because they made all these like decisions before they talked to them. So you could give advice about like how to make that person part of the decision-making process, or anyway. So that's another concern is, you know, my spouse is not on board. What else do we get? We have, you know, the perennial, like, I don't look good on camera. I am concerned about my body. I'm concerned about my weight. I need to lose weight first, or I just want photos of my kids. I don't want to be in them. I'm self-conscious. I hate how I look on camera. I think those are the 4 big ones. So really you can just start with those 4 and then add in anything that the people you talk to, if you ask people like who you would like to work with, look at their concerns. And if there's anything new or special, then I would add that in. But those are the big ones, those 4. One thing you can do, I'm very much in favor of, like, not putting too much pressure on yourself at the beginning to know exactly who your people are, exactly how you're going to serve them, but like just letting it develop organically. So by that I mean, let's say that there is a local like television station. You said you're in a small town, so it might there might not be a television station. But let's say there's a local business who does have success reaching families in some way. Do they have a newsletter? Do they have an Instagram account? And can you come up with some kind of partnership with them where you could come and say your message, like, here's why I think documentary photography here's why it's different, here's why it's special. Here are the kind of people who it works for. You know, if you have a kid with special needs, if you, you know, don't want your family to be posed, if your favorite photos that you take of your family tend to be the candids rather than the one where you like sit the kid in a specific spot and take their picture. Like, let me tell you a little bit about what this is like. Let me show you what a session is like. If you can just come up with some kind of partnership with a local business owner who's already targeting like the general demographic, and do something that involves a lot of interaction. So you can either issue them a challenge, like, so let's say you're working with the local little tiny kid shop, like clothing store, or I don't know, just some kind of like something that targets kids, whether they sell toys or clothes or whatever. You can issue them a challenge. Like, so basically, like, you know, Ralph's Toy Store has teamed up with Holly Photography to give you this challenge of like, here are 3 photos you have to take over summer break with your kids. And here's how to get good ones, or something like that. And it gives you a chance to give them something useful, which is key for building trust. But then it gives you a chance to ask questions of them, like throughout the process. So like, let's say it's a 3-day challenge. At the end of the first unit, you can give them a challenge, take a picture of your kids playing with water or something like that. You can ask at the end, like, what is your biggest concern about taking photos of your kids? Or or something like that, you can start to ask questions as a part of that challenge, and it gives you a chance to have a dialogue with people in your town, in your area, who are already interested in supporting local businesses because you're working with another local business. And just sort of see where that takes you. You might find that people are really responsive to like the candid, relaxed thing. You might find that a lot of people just have concerns about kids' behavior. They need a sensory friendly session. That direction might help. So I think just reaching people through an established platform in a way that genuinely serves people. You never want to come in and be like, hey, can I promote my photography business? Because people are going to say no, they're busy promoting their own business. But if you say, hey, I think your people would be really interested in this kind of challenge or this kind of information, can I do this with you? And give them a list of how it benefits their audience. Many people will say yes, especially if you're promoting it on your own platform so they get cross publicity as well. So that's just where I would start. Start with people who you want to work with, and then try to find a local platform where you can interact with people on a bigger basis, and just let sort of that interaction guide you and tell you what people are really interested in. Cool. Tammy asks, how do we know if we narrow down our target client too much? Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Let me think about that for a second. Oh, sorry, question. I have to put this for McCall, who's going to timestamp these questions. How do we know if we've narrowed down our target client too much? Well, I mean, the baseline answer is if there aren't enough people who meet that description in your area, then you've narrowed it down too much. Like if you are targeting moms who want photos of their kids in their backyard garden because they belong to a rose society and they have perfect rose. Like, you know, like if you're getting like really specific, that only this subgroup of people fits into that category, then it's probably too small. But that said, like beyond like certain qualifiers, like, okay, a mom of 2 kids who, you know, is creative, that might sound narrow, but it's actually not at all. And actually the more narrow you go down, the more specific you can get about that person's concerns. And often the more specific you get, the more universal you get. It's kind of counterintuitive, but like, let's say that you photograph, let's say, you know, it's a mom, she has 2 kids, she's a graphic designer, and she likes the idea of having good photos, but she's self-conscious about getting them taken. Okay. So that might sound really specific, but when you get down and look at her concerns, you'll start to find things like she feels like after having kids, her body changed and she doesn't really feel like herself anymore. Okay, if you wrote an article of that and put it on HuffPost, you would get thousands of replies from thousands of people who've had the same exact experience. So the more specific you got, actually you tapped into something that was really universal. So one thing I talk about in Irresistible Website is this idea that like Nike might target young athletes. But like surgeons are wearing Nike shoes like to perform surgery, right? So like anything that benefits a young athlete, like endurance or strength, or, you know, this can handle lots and lots of wear and tear and repetitive movement. All of those concerns actually, even though a surgeon is not a young athlete, well, he might be, I guess, he or she might be, but even though they're not like buying this for the basketball court, all of those concerns, like, is it going to hold up? Can it keep up with me? Can it stand up under lots of repetitive wear and tear? They have those same exact concerns. You know, they're doing repetitive motion in surgery. Can it keep up with them? Can it keep up with their energy when they're going from place to place to see patients? So I actually wouldn't worry about narrowing it down too much, because those specific concerns are going to generalize in a big way. I would actually worry more about just, am I getting at what their real concerns are, rather than worrying about narrowing down too much. I don't know that I've ever encountered someone whose target client was so narrow they couldn't get business, as long as what they were letting guide them was the concerns that they had. So, like, yes, if you're targeting just nonprofits who save sea turtles, there's probably a limited number of those in the world. But the concerns that nonprofit that's saving sea turtles have is going to be the same as a horse rescue, is going to be the same as a dog rescue. And if you get into those specific concerns, everyone's going to be interested. So that's what I would spend my time thinking about. Okay. Jennifer says, hey, Jenica, hey. It feels weird to just sit here talking into a camera, but I trust that you guys, I wish we could all be sitting here in person because it would be way more fun. All right, high school senior photographer here. How do you decide what content to feature on your blog versus what should go to clients on your email list? Okay, my answer to this has changed than if you'd asked me this in 2013, okay? Now, my experience of this has been, in terms of blog versus email list, is that if I send something out to my email list and it's not also on my blog, people come to me. I get emails all the time. People will be like, hey, I want to send this to my friend. Like, is this available online somewhere? So you can absolutely have some exclusive email content. So for example, when you're getting people to sign up, you can have an intro sequence of things like, you're issuing a challenge, you're giving special tips on something. They can only get that from your newsletter, your emails, so they have to sign up for the emails to get it. I think the chief benefit for emails for people now is that they don't have to think to go back to your website. People like getting stuff delivered. They can instantly read it. They don't have to do any work to access it beyond just tapping with their thumb. Whereas if it's just on your blog and they have to think to go back, and they're not going to do that. So actually anything that you put on your blog, I would send out at least a link to it on your newsletter or your email list, because otherwise people are going to miss it. Likewise, if you're writing something just for your email list, I would think very carefully about, are people going to want to share this? Because the thing about an email is it's fleeting. Like if you're to look at a graph of like how long your email lives, you're going to get a ton of opens, within the hour after you send it, and it tapers off, and then the email's dead after probably 24 hours. Like you're not going to get very many opens after that. So if it's something like a flash sale or a special, or, an announcement like, I have 10 sessions open right now, I'm sending them to my email list first. Something that's time limited, that can go just for email, because someone might see it on your blog 3 days later and those 10 sessions are gone. So that's suited just for email. But really, I've come to find that I used to just like write posts that were informational only, like here's tips on this, here's how to do this. And then my newsletter was like more personal, warm interaction. But then I found that like that warm interaction, people were like, wait, I want to send this to my friend. Like, can I send them a link? So I actually think cross-posting in the majority of cases is going to serve you better. Just keeping in mind like the time life. If something's limited time, that can be just for email lists. And that's a benefit to being on your newsletter. Like you hear about this first, so you want to be on this list. So I hope that answers your question. I actually think if you'd asked me a few years ago, I would have said, use your blog for like tips and stuff like that, and use your newsletter for like warm interaction and building relationships. But I think, and it's not just me, I've talked to a lot of other people who found the same thing. Like people want to be able to send links to people. They want evergreen stuff, but they also want to get it in their inbox so they don't have to think to go to your blog. So that's my standing currently on that. The internet changes all the time. It could change 3 years from now. We'll see where that goes. Okay. You say, I want interesting content on my blog aside from just posting sessions, but also some special content to keep people on my email list. Yeah, so if you are concerned about keeping people on your email list, I would think about making a very flexible hook. So let's say you are getting people to sign up for your email list by some sort of challenge, like, 5 photos you have to take over Christmas break, or 5 photos you have to take over summer break. You do that. And then like next December, you send just to your email list, well, here's a secret challenge. Remember that challenge you just did? Here's 5 photos you have to take over summer break or over Christmas break. In the spring, here's 3 photos you have to take of your kids in spring. So you can keep playing on that initial sign up sequence, like whatever it was you gave them initially, whether it was a challenge or just like advice or empathizing with a particular concern that they might have. You can keep playing on that theme, and that can go just to the email list, because then they feel special. And it's also related to what they're interested in, right? It's related to, they signed up for that specific topic. So if they keep getting info on that topic, they're going to want to stay on your email list. Okay. All right. Cassandra says, hi, Jenica. What is a good way to get information to use for more specific targeting from past clients? For example, would a survey work, and what questions would you ask? Okay. What is a good, I'm just gonna read that again. What is a good way to get information to use for more specific targeting from past clients? For example, would you a survey work, and what questions you ask? Okay. A survey absolutely does work. So if you set up with SurveyMonkey or Google Forms or whatever the case may be, there's a few things to keep in mind. Okay, first of all, you never, ever, ever, ever want to use the word survey because people hate it. I wrote a whole blog post about this, the 3 questions that get you the testimonials that you need to have or something like that. If you go to my website and Google that or search for that. When I used to actually do psychology research, and I would try to get people to fill out surveys. Like I would stand there on campus with paper surveys and try to get people to fill out. If I said, will you fill out a survey for me? Like people are like, no, like nobody wants to do that. If you say, hey, will you answer 3 quick questions for me? You'll get a lot more response. So first rule is never use the word survey. Second rule is anytime you ask someone to click, another time you're going to get drop off, right? So if you send an email and you say, reply to this email, you're going to get a certain number of replies. But if you say, click on this link and reply, you're going to get fewer people because people are going to be like, oh, I'll do it later, or I'm not going to click. I don't know where this is going to take me. Like people don't like having to click too much. So I personally favor doing replies. Unless you're doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, which I'm guessing you're probably not. Like if you're doing less than 20 people, I would just ask them to reply to the email rather than clicking on a link, because the drop off is enough that if you only sent it out to 20 people, you might only get like 5 replies. Whereas if you just asked them to reply to that email, you would have gotten more. You can also do like an either or, like you can either reply to this email or you can click on this link and fill this out. So yeah, but in terms of, what was the other part of your question? Oh, if you're emailing hundreds of people, then for your own sake, like you do need them to click. And in that case, what I would do is introduce it in a very warm way. Like, how long has it been since someone just sat and asked you how your day was going and what your concerns were? And I'd really like to hear it from you. So would you go right here and tell me how you're feeling? It'll only take 1 minute. So give them like a time frame. Like if you click on this thing, it's only going to take 1 minute. It's only going to take 2 minutes. And you're framing it as like, I'm here to listen to you, which is kind of a rare thing these days. Everyone wants to talk. No one wants to listen. Then you're going to get more click-throughs. So that's more of a technical side of your question. But in terms of what questions to ask, so if you go to my blog, the recent posts have some really great questions. But the questions you want to ask people are, you want to know what their biggest concerns or worries were before they booked you, or if you don't have any clients yet, when was the last time you hired a photographer? What were your biggest concerns as you were searching for one? So you just want to know, what are their real-time concerns? What were you thinking as you were searching for someone? What were you thinking? What were you concerned about before you booked? Was there anything that stopped you? Was there anything that made you like, I don't know if I want to contact this person? You want to know those things. So that's where I would circle around if you're getting target client information. If you also need testimonials for your site, you can say, what are some things that stand out in your mind about the session? Or were you worried about anything beforehand, and did that actually happen? And if not, what happened instead? That's a great question, because it gets people to be like, yeah, I weren't going to behave. But like, as soon as we got there, she was great. And she just like started running around the park with them, and they had a blast, and they didn't even notice that we were there to do something. So that thing of like, what did you worry was going to happen? What happened instead is a great testimonial, because then you put that on your website and people will be like, oh, I'm worried about that too. But look, that other person had the same concern and it didn't happen for them. In general, I would not ask more than 3 questions unless you have a very good reason. I don't know what the good reason would be, but you don't want to ask too much of people's time. So I would keep it to 3 questions, so you can say, hey, can you answer 3 quick questions for me? Rather than like fill out this survey, which we already discussed is horrible. I hope that answers your question, Cassandra. If you have, Cassandra, sorry if I'm saying that wrong. If you have follow-ups to that, I'm happy to answer. Tammy says, I'm nodding my head at pretty much every word you say. Well, thank you. All right. Fardo Dopstra says, hi, Jenica. What do you think is the... I'm going to forget this. What do you think is the optimum amount of photos for a blog post or a Facebook post or Instagram post? And speaking of Instagram, post and feed and or stories. Okay. Disclaimer here. In terms, I've never used Instagram to market a business, so I'm actually not the best person to ask that question. However, I'm very good at researching, and Instagram usually puts out usability data on stuff like that. So they'll put out things like, you know, here's how much people engage with stories versus here's how much people engage with posts. Here is the number of like photos, like do people swipe, like what are the percentages of people who swipe to see the additional photos that you add, stuff like that. So I would just go look for, you know, Instagram, you know, usability data for businesses, Instagram statistics for business. There's lots of places like HubSpot that publish that information. And I would let that be your guide. Partly because I think it's going to change a lot over time. I think when Instagram introduced stories, it was going to be one way, but now that people are used to it, it's going to be another way. So I would look at that and say, okay, what are people really what are people actually doing? What is their actual behavior? Because you don't want to put everything in a post when stories actually end up getting much more engagement on average. I do know that Instagram, like if you're going to do a video clip, that 30 seconds is the sweet spot for Instagram video. And I read that again. It was just data released by the company. So I would let those statistics be your guide of like where on Instagram to put things. But in terms of the optimum amount of photos for a blog post, I think the question there is, or the answer to that question would be enough to complete a story arc. Okay, so in a blog post, what you want to do, and this is what we talk a lot about in Irresistible Words, is what you want to do is give people a story so that they're looking for something, that it's not just family photos, because we can see family photos anywhere, right? There's lots of people who take family photos. But if you start and tell them a story, like I gave the example in Irresistible Words, I think about a necklace. Like let's say that you talked, like it's a engaged couple, and she wears a necklace. And you say, oh, like, hey, where'd you get that necklace? It's really pretty. And she tells you a story about how on their first date, they were walking and they were window shopping and she saw it. She's like, oh, isn't that beautiful? And then he like bought it and had it delivered to her desk the next day or something like that. So you tell that story. Then when someone goes to look at the photos, they're going to be looking for that necklace because they heard that story. They know it's a meaningful part of their love story. Suddenly this post becomes much more interesting because they know that story behind it. So I would think about that, like what completes the story. Like you don't want 80 pictures of one like featuring the necklace, but you know, if you have a few that feature the necklace and then more that just show their romance, like just complete the arc. So if it's a family session and like you're doing, let's say you shoot at golden hour, the sun actually makes a nice arc for you. So I would do, you know, a few, you know, earlier as the kids warmed up, you know, more of the family, and just like as the sunset, sort of like do the last, you know, the last shot is like a silhouette shot or whatever. That has like a nice sense of completion. What you're looking for, what I'm really saying is you want to give people a sense of completion. So if they're just seeing more of the same thing, you don't ever want to have two similar shots in a row because people are looking for differences. When they look at photos, they're looking for contrast. So I would say people are going to stop looking as soon as they feel they're done getting new information. So if they feel like, if they're scrolling through and they're like, yeah, I've seen a photo like that. Yeah, okay, I've seen them all. Then they'll probably just look at the first 3, 4, 5. But if each one gives them new information, new perspective, it has a different location, they're going to keep scrolling. And the other piece is different audiences respond to different things. And so if you look at, like if you go to your Google Analytics, which you should absolutely have installed on your website, if you can look at specific blog posts, how long did people spend looking at your post? If you find people are really only spending 30 seconds, you want to maximize however, but the post had like 80 photos, they're probably only looking at the first 10. And so you probably just want to focus in on that, tell a good story with that, give them a sense of completion. and just let that sit. But I would focus on telling a story with it, and because that's what's going to get people to be engaged. That's what's going to get them to imagine themselves in the photos, which is really why we do blog posts, is they start to imagine themselves in it. They have an emotional connection with it. So just look for that arc. I guess that's the answer to the question. I think some audiences would tap out sooner than others, but as long as you have that arc, that's what's important. There's another component to your question. Yeah, or for a Facebook post. Again, I would, if you can set it up like a story arc, like a single Facebook post. Let's say you had a kid blowing bubbles, right? You have them dipping it in, they pull it out. There's like the moment they're about to blow, and then they blow like the first one, and you can see the bubbles starting to form, and then they see the bubbles everywhere. So right, that's a little arc. You've completed it. I don't think you need tons more photos than that. The beauty of Facebook and Instagram is that the posts are so short-lived. You can actually make one session sort of live on in multiple posts. So like you can do one story that's just like the kid blowing bubbles, one story of the kid playing fetch with the dog, one story of the parents watching their kids. So I would not try to cram a whole session into one post, like one Facebook post, like one album of like 50 photos. I would just create these little arcs and have some comments from you or from the client if you have that, and talk and just tell the little stories. That's what I would do. I hope that helps. Okay, I think I've answered all the questions that have come through. Happy to take more. Oh my gosh, I didn't bring my water down here. I don't have water. So I can't just sit here and sip water till someone asks another question. Let me just think. What are some other questions I get about target clients? Let me think. Oh, Farda says thank you. You're welcome. Let me think. What are some other things people ask? I get questions all the time. The trouble is I tried to answer most of them in the blog posts I just wrote. So I'm like, what else did people ask? Oh, Tammy, you're asking such great questions. Okay. How can you encourage past clients to share photos of their products, experience, etc.? Oh, that's a great question. Okay. Well, the first thing you can do is you can actually always just tell people directly. You know, you can say something just like at the end of your work together, however it ends, whether you deliver the files, deliver the canvas prints, whatever, and say, you know, the best way you can support my business moving forward is to just like let other people know about your experience. You can give them a question to add, like, and you can say like the best Amazon reviews are the ones, because everyone reads Amazon reviews, right? You know, you can say something like the best Amazon reviews are the ones that like give the real deal. Like I was worried about buying this because I thought it wouldn't fit or whatever, but I got it and it's perfect and it's great. And you can say like, if you would just think about like, if I were on Amazon, what would you write? Like, what would you tell people? What is like the real concern you had and what was the real experience you had? If you want to just frame it that way, like if you liked what you did and you want to support it, if you like what I did and you want to support it, post an Amazon review, but just put it on your own Facebook and just say like, hey, I had photos done. This was what I was thinking about. This is what happened. And look what the results. People are actually surprisingly willing to do that when you give them a specific task and a specific way to do it. Because I think we all feel a little bit hokey just saying like, so-and-so was so professional. Like no one wants to post that. They were such a professional and we just loved our photos. Like they don't know what to say. But if you frame it as something that's familiar, like write me an Amazon review only on your Facebook, like what were the real concerns you had? Or was there anything you were worried about? Or was there anything funny that happened in the session? If you could just post that along with your photos. I think most people who do like family photos usually do share their stuff. And so if you just ask them to put that along with it, like put up like what you'd write for an Amazon review with it, most people would be like, oh, that's a good idea. You won't get everybody, but you might get like 20, 30%, which is significant, actually. I wouldn't be discouraged by that. Another thing you can do is, so depending on what kind of photography you do, you can't, so like let's say you do headshots. You can give people a challenge, like what are the like 4 places people need to put their headshots online, and make sure they post them in all those places. Because if they're going to go to the trouble to have headshots, they for sure need to take advantage of them and put them in all of these places. Like someone might have gotten a headshot because they have to go to a conference to give a talk and they just needed it for that. But part of your service as a photographer to them is saying, like, hey, you've got these headshots. Let's maximize them. Let's make the most of them. Here's everywhere you need to upload them. You need to put them on your Gravatar. You don't know what a Gravatar is? Oh, here's what it is, and here's where you go, and here's the link. So you can have like a little email sequence even that introduces people to like, here's all of the ways you need to use your photos. And then after you've been helpful, the last one could be, hey, like I know you might feel goofy, like just putting it as your Facebook profile picture. Maybe it was a professional thing. Maybe you don't use your Facebook that way. But, you know, would you consider posting it and just saying like, here was my experience with having my headshot taken? Because I think a lot of people are hesitant to have headshots taken. They think it's just going to be this horrible thing like going to the dentist where they just go and smile and they hate the way they look in photos. If you can share with people, like just post your headshot. Number 1, you can enjoy all the likes and comments and compliments that roll in. But number 2, it'll just help support me and it'll help your friends who are afraid to get their headshots done be brave enough to do it. So that's another way you can do it. Issue a challenge and then just make a specific request at the end. Sharing photos of products. I think it's the same thing. Like if like you sell dog leashes or something like that. Another thing you can do is if you have a big enough Instagram following, people really like feeling famous, even if it's internet famous. So if you feature, like if people tag you and you feature them on your Instagram or on your Facebook or in your email newsletter, people like feeling like they got featured, it's special. So if you say like, hey, upload a photo of your dog wearing it, we would love to feature you or something like that, you're going to get more people who are like super comfortable with that, like willing to do that. Again, it's never going to be everyone, but that's another way to do it. Follow-up question. Are social media non-giveaway contests good ways to gain client interaction? If so, what types of interactions might you encourage? Okay, so I probably have a different opinion about this than some other people, so don't take what I'm about to say as gospel. This is just my perspective. I found that contests, when there's a few, like just a couple winners, tend to create sort of a scarcity mindset in people. Like there's one winner and I'm going to be it. Whereas I prefer personally to do things that are more collaborative. So like I keep using the word challenge, but it's because I think people respond well when everybody can participate and everybody gets something out of it. So for example, this is kind of a just random thought. Like a long time ago, Nations Photo Lab came to me and they were like, hey, do you want to do like a giveaway of a print or something? And I said, well, I love that idea, but the thing is, like, I don't want to just give away one print to one person because I love my whole audience. I don't just love one person in my audience. And so what they ended up doing was anyone who was a new client could get like a $50 credit or something. And that gave huge interaction because lots of people participated. Lots of people wanted to get that benefit. So I'm always on board with giving as many people as benefit as possible, and where I don't create that sensation of pitting people against each other. I have seen things like, you post several people's photos and whichever one gets the most comments. I'm sure that actually does make your interaction go through the roof. But my personal perspective is I care the most about how I'm making people feel, because the way people feel is the thing that they're going to remember. So I worry less about absolute numbers and more about like, how are people feeling along the way? So along those lines, that's why I like a challenge. Like, have you maximized the photos you have already? Here are 3 ways to do it. Anybody who completes these 3 things gets featured on this thing or gets whatever. Then everybody wants to be on the leaderboard or wants to be featured or wants to be whatever it is you're giving them. It's an alternative way to do a sale too. Like if anyone who completes these 3 things, you're going to get something that you would have given to everyone anyway. but now they're invested. It's like that foot in the door technique. Like if you ask people to do one small thing and they do it, they're more likely to do the next thing. So instead of just saying like, hey, 10% off prints this weekend, if you're going to do some kind of special like around Black Friday or something, you can say, hey, anyone who posts a photo of them holding whatever, they're going to get 10% off prints. People are going to look through it because they want to see all the goofy things you ask people to do, or they're going to look for their own photo in the featured album. And it was something you would have given all of them anyway. And because they took the step to actually do the thing, they're more likely to actually use the coupon or take advantage of the sale. So I'm more in the camp of let's like do this across the board. Let's get everybody a benefit. And that's sort of my take on that. Also, I did a challenge that I still have people tell me about. So I did a class called Secret Society. I had a series of secret missions that I had people accomplish, and oh my goodness, like people still email me about how much fun that was. So I think including everyone, doing a scavenger hunt, something like that everyone can do. I think that makes people feel better. I don't know absolute numbers wise which one's more beneficial, but it definitely makes people feel better. And I did that in 2016, 2014, 15, 14, 2014. People still talk to me about it. That was a long time ago. So anyway, okay. You want a Starbucks? I knew it. I was like, I think I remember her last name from that thing. Yeah, you were in that class. Yay. Yeah. Doing something that benefits everyone. I'm all about the win-win. And actually now, since people have asked about blog posts and people have asked about email newsletters, please keep asking questions. But one question I get is, how often should I do a promotion on my blog? Or how often should I send out a promotion to my email list? Okay. This is my philosophy on this. My only rule for sending out emails to you guys, or in general, or when I'm writing emails for somebody else, is I want everyone to get something out of the email regardless of whether or not they buy. Okay? I want to write some piece of content that is so good or so interesting, or so beneficial, or so heartening, or so inspirational, that if someone took the time to read it, regardless of whether or not they purchased from me, they still feel like they got something out of it, then it's okay. And I say that because we've all gotten so many promotional emails in our lives that we just tune it out if we feel like we're being sold to too often, which is why people ask that question, like, how often can I do it? But the fact is, like, I can't stand it when I go to read an email and, like, there's a really cool story at the beginning and I'm like, oh, this is great. And I start reading it and then I get to the bottom and it was just a sales pitch, right? It's like that movie, A Christmas Story. Was it A Christmas Story where, like, Ralphie has, like, the decoder ring and he does this whole thing and he was so excited about, like, decoding the message and he decoded it and it was just a marketing message. Like, I don't want people to ever feel like they read a blog post just to get a marketing message, because then it's just like, oh, and then they don't trust you ever again. They don't trust you because they know anytime they start reading something, this could turn into a sales pitch at any moment, and people don't like feeling on guard. So if it's beneficial, regardless of whether they actually buy from you, whether they become a customer, whether they become a client, that's when you get people keep reading and you're going to end up getting more clients. So in terms of frequency, people will ask, how many newsletters? I wouldn't do it every newsletter, because you want to show that I'm here to benefit you and I want you to continue to honor me with your time. And that said, there's a couple different kinds of promotions. There's like a specific promotion that you can do. So if you have like some tips or some thoughts or a really cool client story that will inspire people, you say that first so that everyone gets something out of it, and then you go to your sale, and that can be a more sale heavy email. That's fine. I wouldn't do it more often than once every other month, or really once a quarter, so that they really pay attention to it when it comes up. If you're sending monthly emails, I would do it once a quarter, no more frequently than that. But that said, there's more than one way to do a call to action. So let's say you email out a post how to get your kids to participate and be excited about family photos. And you email 3 tips, and if one of the tips is, you as a parent, your kids sense your moods. If you're stressed, they're going to be stressed, and then they're going to misbehave more because they're like, oh, this is stressful, I don't like it. So, you need to make sure you're calm. If you work with me, here's a few things I do to make sure that it's a relaxing experience. We've planned everything in advance. We're doing stuff that your kids already love to do, blah, blah, blah. So you're listing benefits from working with you in there. So it is a sales pitch, but it's not a sales pitch, and it's not like, it's very natural. It flows naturally. There's nothing wrong with having something like that in, I'd say, 80% of your emails. So I would only do like a pitch, like a hard pitch, like once a quarter, but you can do lots and lots of like little things like, hey, if you work with me, we make sure this doesn't happen by doing this. Cause then you're just talking about like what benefits them, not like, hey, everybody book a session. It doesn't get as tiresome. So I hope if anyone was thinking of that question, that's one I get a lot from a lot of people. Oh my gosh, we've been talking for 1 hour and 20 minutes. Holy cow. You guys have asked great questions. I am all ears. I see there's 18 people here. I would love for you all to ask a question. If you took the time to come, even if there's no such thing as dumb questions. If I've already answered the question, it's okay. I'm not going to think you're dumb for it. Like, I know you guys are busy. Just pop it in the chat box or send me an email. I'm more than happy to answer. Okay, someone just sent me an email. Wait, is this a cat or is this a dog? Someone just sent me a picture of their pet who's like sitting, looking at the screen, like watching me talk. That's hilarious. I think it's a cat. Oh my gosh, that's funny. I should ask, where are you guys all located? Oh yeah. Where are you guys all located? One of the coolest things for me is like going to my Google Analytics and seeing where everybody's from. I have audience members like, actually, I get a lot of emails. People are like, oh, is your stuff only for United States audience? I wish I could. I probably should screenshot the map sometime, because I'd say it's really like a little half to a little over half of my audience is in the United States. But there's a ton in Canada, a ton in the UK, a ton in Australia, a ton in Germany. Yay, Germany. I love Germany. Austria. And then like there's a list of countries, but it's really like all over the map, literally all over the map. So yeah, we've got people from middle of nowhere, South Dakota. I love South Dakota. Oh my gosh, I went there. Of course, I'm sorry, I did go to visit Mount Rushmore, but it was totally cool. It was gorgeous, and there were some like really beautiful national monuments there. I loved it. Farthest from the Netherlands. At the moment, I'm located behind the cat. Yes, say hi to scratch his ears for me. I've been to the Netherlands a few times. It was gorgeous. I really need to go back. Holly's from Virginia. That's a gorgeous state. Phoenix. I've never been to Phoenix. I've been to Arizona, but not Phoenix. Mark is from Germany. Oh my gosh, Mark, you got to be more specific than that. Like, where in Germany? Germany is not like a massive, like, every region of Germany is so different. Reading, England. I think, am I saying that right? It's Reading, right? It's not Reading, I think. Reading. I met someone who was from the University of Reading once. Tennessee. Tennessee is beautiful. Oh my gosh, I drive through there to go visit my in-laws, and it's like the most beautiful hills and mountains and like, oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. Asheville, North Carolina. I've been there. I've eaten the barbecue. It was delicious. And it was also beautiful. Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That's like the one place in North Carolina I've never been. I kind of wish, I have this secret dream of living in North Carolina because it's a gorgeous state. Everyone I know who's from there is obsessed with it. I had a college roommate who was from North Carolina and just would not stop talking about it. I think it's amazing. Walnut Creek, California. I bet it's beautiful there. I've never been there. That sounds like a name you'd see in a Hallmark movie, like Walnut Creek. Like, that sounds very pleasant. Metro West Boston. Oh my gosh. Boston drivers are so crazy. like people talk about like New York drivers, but like Boston drivers are more intense in my opinion. So I hope you're taking the T, because it stresses me out just thinking about driving there. But I love Boston. It's such a cool place. North Germany, right at the coast of the Baltic Sea, in a town called Rostock. Okay, I used to get on the train every weekend. I lived in Leipzig for a summer, and there was always, like, Rostock was the terminal of that, like, train line. And, like, every weekend, I would get on it and be like, I should just stay on this train until it goes all the way to Rostock. Like, why not? Like, I'll just see what's there. And I never did. And it's like then my regret. So it's funny that you're from there, Mark, because I always wanted to go there and never did. And now I regret it. So I'm sure it's amazing. So, okay. Anyway, what questions do you guys have? Like what, or like it can be anything really. If you have questions that don't have to do with target clients, I'm happy to answer. I'm promised to be here for another half hour or so. So I'm here. It's free coaching. Ask away. Now I'm sitting here thinking about Germany and German food. Oh my gosh. Somebody asked me a question because now I'm going to get hungry. Just so you know, anytime I'm like bored, my brain automatically defaults to thinking about food. So I'm just going to sit here thinking about food until someone asks me a question. Make sure I didn't miss any in the email. I don't think I got any come through. I think there's probably a delay. Let me think about what are some other common questions I get about target clients. Or newsletters. Oh, Laura. Oh, this is a great question. Okay, Laura asks, how do you give extra attention to your top 10% clients? That is fantastic. Okay. A little bit depends on what kind of business you are. If you want to pop which business you are in there, that would be helpful to give specific examples. But I think the biggest way that I found to give attention is actually follow up. Like follow up with people, especially if you're in, so weddings is a little bit tough because, you know, they're going to get married once. So extra attention in that case really should be given to every client because you don't really know if they're going to be in the top 10%. So just treat them all really well. Oh, she says low volume portraits. Okay, that's a little easier. So if someone is a repeat client, I think one of the biggest ways is just follow up. Like, so follow up with them after they, after, you know, you've delivered your portraits. Like, hey, was there anything else I can do for you? Did everything work out? You can follow up the 6 month or the 1 year mark. Let's say you deliver canvases to people. You can say something like, hey, how are your canvases holding up in your living room? You know, are they still looking good? Like, have you had any changes? Has anything, you know, like my stuff is built to last, but I just want to make sure that everything's like good to go. So that actually is, I think, what really starts to differentiate you from other people is when you follow up with people and you make sure that whatever you delivered to them is lasting and that it's still good and that you care long-term about what happens, that you're not just there to sell them something when they come to you to buy. So I think that's a big one. Another one you can do is, like find out when their special occasions are. So, okay. So let's say, you know, someone, they come in for a family portrait and you know that, you find out that their anniversary, like the husband and wife or the spouses, the wife, husband, that their anniversary is, you know, July 1st. And you took fall portraits of them. So next July, like a week beforehand, you know, you order a package together, just a small print. Like, you don't need to be sending them a canvas or anything, but just like a small actual physical print. It would cost you probably $1 to manufacture. Mail it to them and just like with a handwritten card, like happy anniversary. I took this photo of you guys during the session, and I just wanted you to have it to remind you of your love on this special day. And it's especially effective if they hired you to do family portraits, but you just sort of thought ahead and you snuck in like, hey, let me just grab you two. Let me just grab you two, mom and dad, or dad and dad, or whoever it is. And you thought ahead and like, I'm going to use this for their anniversary. But like, if they weren't expecting that, that is like a mind-blowing touch. Like, oh my gosh, like we went to her for family photography, but like, look at this thing that she did. And then they're going to put it on their desk or on their fridge or whatever. And they're going to be so happy about it. Same thing. Like if you do, like if it's a couple, you can take a picture of like just one parent and just the other parent. And, like you don't even show it. Like, let's say, you know, they're not going to buy it. Like, you don't even show it to them in the like ordering session. Like, you just send it to each of them for their anniversary or for Christmas or for Mother's Day or Father. Like, it could be any occasion. It doesn't have to be their anniversary. And just say like, hey, I wanted you to have this of your spouse and you to have this of your spouse, like to put up in your room. So those kind of touches, like thinking ahead when you're actually creating the photos, it's such a low cost thing for you to do, because like taking a photo is just a matter of thinking to do it. And then the prints, like you can make a really nice print for not that much like hard cost. And that is going to be a big value to them. That's going to be a wow, she's still thinking of us. So those landmark things after the fact that show you continue to think about them. Another one might be, if you're doing seniors, is just keep track of when the graduation dates are. So let's say you take it, you know, they're rising senior, like either end of their junior year or the summer before their senior year. You know that, like, you probably only have a few local high schools, write down all their graduation dates. And again, send like a little print, something to like, or you could like take a picture of them with their mom and send it to them like, hey, I wanted you to have this as a graduation gift for when you go off to college. So just create, like, think of like a little extra photo you can snap that you're just like, oh, let me just grab this real quick. And like, don't even say anything about it. And then send it to them as a gift. That's going to be a wow thing, with pretty low, investment from you, but high return. So I guess in terms of just giving them extra intention, the principle might even be like, what can you lay the groundwork for during the session that will make a big impact later? Another thing you can do is like, if there's kids involved, you can have them like color a picture or something like that you give to them with the photos, or that you send to them like a year later, like a little time capsule thing. Like, you could do an interview with each kid, for example, like, what's your favorite color? What's something you love about mom? What's something you love about dad? Or you can even just ask them this during the session and just remember their answers if you have a good memory. But if not, you can just like write it down. And again, mail it to them, mail it to the parents on Father's Day, on Mother's Day, Christmas, like whatever. It's like a little time capsule that shows that you remembered. So really, it's just like, what can I do in the session that I can make a surprise for them later? Because surprise is one of the most memorable emotions. Like, your brain is wired to remember surprise because the surprise is something that violated your beliefs about the world. And so it knows it needs to update it. So like, that's like the geeky psychology aspect, but people are going to remember a surprise much, much more than like most other things you could do. So I would say, what can I lay the groundwork for that would be a nice surprise later? That's what I would do. Okay. Fardo asks, I used to do newborn photography and quit. I was fed up with it. Oh no, I still get requests from clients. Any advice on how to get them on board on more documentary style stories when the family grows? I don't advertise or share any newborn stuff unless it's part of lifestyle or day in the life session, by the way. Okay. So this is interesting. First of all, whatever kind of photos you take, like everybody knows this here, this is not a secret. Whatever kind of photos you do, there's always going to be people asking you to shoot stuff that you don't shoot. So that's just sort of like a baseline like thing that happens. I used to get requests to do weddings all the time. I've never shot a wedding in my life. I have no desire to do them. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I did shoot two, but let's not talk about that. That was for a special occasion. So like, it's just going to happen. But the interesting thing is, if people are asking you repeatedly, then that means it's a need. And if people are coming to you for it, then they're already motivated to buy. So you are really smart to be thinking about how can I sort of shift this into what I'm looking at? So I think the most important thing that you can do is think through, okay, what benefit does the documentary style story give to the family that they might not know about? So it could be a case of they just see like, oh, my friends are getting newborn photos taken. I need newborn photos. Oh, hey, he does photos. Let me ask him. But that gives you an opportunity to say, what I do is not just photos of the baby, but the whole, like, I photograph the whole chapter of life as it begins when you have a baby. Think of something that sort of expands and broadens their vision. That's like your go-to line. And say, for example, you don't just want photos of just the newborn, like you want to remember what it was like to hold your newborn for the first time. And there's going to be lots of little things in your life right now that you're too sleep deprived to remember. But even just the way that like the diaper things were scattered across the changing table at a point later in your life, those moments and those things are going to trigger a whole flood of memories beyond just what is going to be triggered by seeing your adorable newborn's face. And so like you could even give a specific example if you have one. You just think about my own experience when my son was born, he slept in our room in a little bassinet, and then we moved into his own room later. But I had taken a photo that I forgot I'd even taken. I don't even know why. I think I was just bored one day, and that showed his little crib and like the little hats and stuff I had lined up on our bookcase next to it. I had completely forgotten about it. It was something I had just done for a few weeks until we moved into a different setup. And it just so vividly took me back to that moment of like standing next to his crib and like putting on his little hat when he was asleep at night and all of this stuff. So like documentary photography like gets all of that extra stuff in. So if you can think of like a couple of stories that like one or two stories that really illustrate that and advertise that and just get people talking about it, like say, you know, on your blog, in your emails, on your website, just like lay out the argument. Like you don't, you know, tell a story. Here's an example of someone who like they didn't think about this thing that I photographed, but then later it triggered all these memories. You want to have those things. That's why I do documentary photography. So you have those things. I think if you just lay out the explanation and show really clearly how it benefits them, and especially if you can use stories that they can easily imagine, like, oh yeah, like I can see that, then it's going to want to persuade them away from just the, you know, focused newborn stuff, which is, I'm guessing, what you don't do, which is a lot of work. That's a lot of work. So I hope that helps. Getting them on board is really about getting them to envision the benefits, envision themselves having those benefits, and stories are a great way to expand that vision. So that's what I would do. Okay. All right. Tammy has a multi-part question here. Regarding the psychology of pricing for portraits. Is it better to have a lower initial price point with no inclusions, for example, a $200 session fee with all products or digitals purchased after, or a higher price point with some inclusions, for example, a $300 session fee with a $100 product credit, than trying to upsell? I've been told that money spent is money forgotten, but is the higher price point going to scare more people off before you have the chance to establish value? Okay. So you actually already outlined some of the benefits and drawbacks. My economics teacher told me there's no price for anything. Like everything's made up, right? And so what you're really looking for is what is going to influence people's behavior in the way that you want it to be influenced. And in every like pricing scheme, there's going to be a curve, and you want the point on the curve where you make the most money for the most people. Because if you raise it too high, you're going to get fewer people and you'll make less money. So what you're doing really is you're finding the point on the curve for your particular market. And there's no absolute answer to that because every market is slightly different. Every location is slightly different. So what I would do is people will give you clues. Okay, so again, think about your target client. Are they the kind of mom who like has coupons and they go shopping with like a little thing of coupons, and you know that they are always searching for coupon codes when they go to buy online? They go to Carter's, they need the $20 off of $40 or the 40% off this. Like if they're like wheeler dealer types like that, then something like the session fee includes a product credit could be beneficial, because then they see like, oh, there's a deal. And when you include the product credit, it's probably pretty rare that there will always be a few people who only get the $100 thing. But most people are like, oh, well, I want a canvas and that's $250. So, okay, then I'll pay now it's only $150. So they feel like they're getting a good deal. If your target client is more the kind of person who's just like, they want things really clear and really, they're just like super busy. I just want it, one and done. I want exactly what I want. I don't want like things to be confusing. There's some people, the thing about coupons and like deals is that you have to devote brain space to them. And it's like, I actually don't shop with coupons that often because I can't keep track of them and their expiration dates and all of that. So I'm actually someone who would be attracted to, okay, $200, then I just pay for exactly what it is I need and I don't get anything I don't need. So the benefit to that is for them is not just the pricing of it, but for example, if you photographed high school seniors, some people are like, I was forced to buy this package that had like 800 wallets, and I gave some away, but now I just have this box of like 800 wallet photos that I don't do anything with, but I had to get them, and I hated that, and they're useless to me. If that's you, then guess what? Like, you pay the session fee, and then you only purchase exactly what you need. I don't force you in any packages. I don't force you to get, this or this or that. It's just exactly what you want. You can pick exactly what you want once you've had a chance to see the photos. So there's a certain target client who that will really appeal to. Like, I get exactly what I want. I don't get anything additional that I don't need. And I get to pick it all once I've had a chance to actually see the photos we got. So some people will feel very reassured by that. So I think really it's just a matter of knowing your person and their personality. And you can always, if you don't know for sure yet, you can always do a test. So you can say, this summer I'm doing a special offer. A 300 session fee gets you this and this, including a $100 credit. And if everyone seems really excited by that, then that's something you'd probably want to explore a little more if people feel like they're getting a good deal. So lots of things to weigh there. I feel like I didn't really give you an answer, except to like really think about the kind of person your person is. Do they appreciate clarity? Do they appreciate deals? Are they, wheeling, dealing kind of a little bit? The one benefit to doing the higher price point is you probably will only get people who are really serious about buying, because it is a higher price point. So you might, if you have trouble with people like not purchasing anything after the session, then that might get people sort of pushed in that direction. That's the only thing I would say, because it is a higher commitment and they recognize that and they're already pre-committing to buying something. Then I think that's a good tool to kind of push people towards that direction. So pricing is really just directing people's behavior. So you need to know what it is you're trying to get them to do and how they're motivated to act. So I would just look at them. All right. Tammy says you give me enough to think about. All right. I'll quit rambling. All right. Allison. Hi, Allison. Says, I have a question. How would you structure an email, introduce yourself to a company that you want to hire you, but you don't have a relationship with them yet? I'm a photographer wanting to do more commercial work, but I don't have contacts at the companies I want to work with. Oh, great question. Okay. So the first thing I would consider for you, before you send an email cold, like wanting to introduce yourself, there's a few things I would do first before taking that approach. First is I would evaluate, okay, I want some more commercial contacts. Is there any way I can make them, even if it's just a brief in-person contact? For example, does my community have a business lunch every month that some organization runs where I can just go and just meet people and get business cards? I think that even just having briefly met you, you're going to have some extra luck there. So I would ask yourself first, okay, I don't have any contacts. What can I do to create those contacts? Another thing you can do is, okay, let's say that you do find there's an organization where like all of the local marketers meet up for lunch at this place, and they do like topical Q&A, or they do some kind of presentation. There's some business organization that does that. I would contact that person who runs that lunch, and you say, hey, I'm a photographer. I know a lot about headshots. I know a lot about online reputation management. I know a lot about how to respond to Google reviews. Like just something that you can offer them. Would you guys be interested in me coming and just giving some tips on how to do this thing that they're all going to care about, whether it's how to optimize your website to load faster, like whatever it is you're an expert in, how to get photos that actually evoke emotions in people, all the places you need to put a headshot, the benefits of having headshots, like whatever it is you're an expert in, go give a presentation on it, and try to just talk to people afterwards and say, hey, can I send you a quick email later? Just, I'd love to be in touch. That's going to get you in the door a little bit faster. So I know I'm sidestepping the question at the beginning here, but I think the best way to solve the problem of not having contacts is to make more contacts. So that said, Another thing you can do is the person who organizes that luncheon, of all the business owners, or whether it's like a small club or something like that, the person who's organizing it is usually kind of a wheeler dealer connector networking type. And actually, it would be good to try to do something to benefit them. Like, hey, how can I make your job easier? Because then they're going to recommend you to all their friends when they hear like, oh, you're doing a website. You need to talk to Allison because she's doing some great work over here. So I would try to make friends with those networker types. Like, you don't have to be a networker. You can just make friends with a networker. And usually they're the ones who are organizing and in charge of things, because that's what extroverts and networkers are drawn to. So I would make friends with those people. Okay, but anyway, to answer your actual question, how do you structure an email or introduce yourself to a company that you want to hire you but you don't have a relationship yet? Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is like go to their website and look for something that you look for a series of things actually that you genuinely admire and think that they're doing really well. And then what I want you to do is the subject line of your email needs to be thank you plus an invitation. Okay, thank you needs to appear in your subject line. And what you do is you write an email and you start it out by saying, and another thing, you need to go to their media page. You can't just contact anybody at the company. You need to look at the person who can actually make a decision. Because if you contact like the secretary, she's gonna be like, oh great, and filter it out. It needs to be someone that that actually has decision-making power. And you don't try to sell them at all. You just say, hey, I'm a local photographer, like I'm so-and-so. I just wanted to tell you, like, I've been following you guys for a while. I saw this on your website. I thought it was really cool. I particularly thought it was effective when blah, 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 blah. And you're not blowing smoke. Like, I don't want you to go and like give fake compliments. It has to be genuine. It has to come from a real place. And I just wanted to let you know, I think you're doing a great job. You can say if there's anything I can do to make your job easier, let me know. But don't make a sale. Don't make a pitch on the first contact. I wouldn't, because they get hundreds of those. Unless you already know they're in the market for a photographer for some reason. Like if you know they're about to launch a new product and say, then you start out like the same way. Like, I know I love this and this and this that you're doing. I think it's so helpful to the community. I was just talking to someone the other day about how great I thought this was. I know you're about to launch this thing, just so you know, like I do work with people who are launching products, and I have like a package that just like it's really quick and easy way to get some photographs taken care of. But like I really just emailed to say I think you guys are doing a great job. So like there's a sales pitch, there's a call to action in there, but it's all about, if this would make your life easier, I can do this. I just wanted you to know, but really I'm just here to tell you I think you're doing a great job. I think you'll have a ton of success with that. There's one more component I wanted to say about talking to other business owners, is that all of us, everyone who's a business owner, is looking for a way to get positive publicity for our businesses. And so if you want to talk to more people, then create a series, like, and this has to come from a real place, like create a series of things you're genuinely interested in. Like I am doing a blog series on ways that our local companies are benefiting the environment. I'm doing a series on ways that local companies are giving back to kids. I'm doing a series on ways that local companies are making moms' lives easier, like whatever it is that you're interested in. Then you go to that person. Again, subject line needs to say thank you plus an invitation. And just say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I am a photographer. Hey, I'm doing a blog series on this, and I would love to feature you and just talk about the great work you're doing. Depending on what kind of business you're in, if they get a chance to speak positively about their company, and then you can say, hey, can I come take a quick photo of you, or can I come take a quick photo of this? And you're doing it, and you'll post it on your blog, and I'll send it to you, and you can use it. Actually doing that work for them that's positively benefiting them, and it's benefiting you too, because if you structure it smartly, is smartly a word? Smartly? That doesn't sound very smart. If you structure it well, it's going to get you a lot of blog traffic. It's going to get you a lot of shares. It's going to get you on other platforms. So this isn't just like a waste of your time. I'm not asking you to go work for free. Not asking you to do that. What I'm saying is find a way that it benefits you and it benefits them, and feature them And then who are they going to go to when they need photos? The person who they already work with, who they already know is super nice, who they already know is a fan, who they already know can portray them well. You're going to be a natural fit. So find a way to benefit them in some way, whether that's presenting at a business luncheon, doing some kind of blog series that benefits you and them. That's how I would get in the door there. So there's my very long answer to your question. I hope that's helpful. All right, we got 10 more minutes, and I have more questions. Yay! Okay. Holly asks, what's the best way to word a follow-up email with potential clients after they inquire and seem really serious about hiring you, but then you're waiting for a response? Okay, I would, first of all, give it a couple days. I think the optimum is 3 days, the research says. Ooh, it's 3 or 4, I can't remember. 3 or 4 days. And then you follow. So, okay, in the initial contact with them, I hope something that you're doing is saying, like, tell me about your family. You know, tell me about, like, do you have any concerns that I can respond to? And then when you circle back, say, hey, I just wanted you to know that, and then add something to the info, not like a lot, but just like a little thing. Hey, I want you to know, like, I know you have like a 3-year-old son, or I know you have whatever. I just wanted you to know I'm doing this like special thing. Or, you can just come back and say, hey, we talked 3 days ago. You know, I'm not here to pester, but I know how busy life is. I know how busy inboxes can get. I just wanted to make sure there weren't any other questions I can answer while you're making your decision. So you're just showing up to say, I know you're busy. This isn't me pestering. I just wanted to make sure that you don't need any other help. Because what often happens is, like, you'll inquire with someone. Like, think about your own experience. You'll send someone an email. They'll reply. And then, like, there's something in that email you have to think, like, oh, I got to think about it. Oh, I got to talk to my spouse. Oh, I got to, you know, figure this thing out first. And if they follow up and just say, hey, is there anything else you're thinking about? Anything else that I can, you know, help you with, or any other information you need? It gives you an out, because I think some people feel embarrassed to follow up after a certain length of time. Like, it's been a week. I didn't reply. Ooh, it's awkward if I reply now. But you're giving them an out, like, I know you're busy, so they feel good. They don't feel like they're slacking off anymore. But you're also giving them a chance to voice whatever it is that they're worried about. Like, if they're worried about, like, oh, I got to talk to my spouse about this. Oh, I've got to do this. You can give them help and support with that. So really, you're just circling back and offering help, bottom line there. I would give it 3 or 4 days, though. I wouldn't just do it the next day, because then it's kind of obnoxious. Okay, Lenka asks, for long-distance clients, I place their images into a gallery, even though I say the gallery will be active for 7 days. I already know where this question is going. Even though I say the gallery will be active for 7 days, I have people who took forever to order, needing more time. I changed my policy slightly. Now the gallery is active for 5 days, and I asked them when would be the best time to release the gallery. I also charge $25 for gallery reactivation. Do you have any better or different ideas? Okay, well, Tammy jumps in with some experience. Tammy says, for my out-of-town clients who don't want to come back for an in-person reveal, or want to do a Skype or Zoom reveal, yeah. I require a $500 down payment towards products in order to release a gallery. Oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah, okay, so actually Tammy kind of got at what my main recommendation would be. So you already do the thing that I would suggest, which is ask them, when is the best time to send you this gallery? It's going to be a fee for it. So that's step 1. Step 2 is keep in mind this is your business, and you have a right to say, this is how we do everything. You can say, you know, you're an out-of-town client. What I do is I set up a very quick Skype session to introduce you to the photos, to tell you everything you need to know. And you tell them why. You say, what's going to happen is you're going to get these photos. You're going to love all of them. It's going to be difficult to make a decision, and you're going to think that you need to take a lot of time to think about it. But actually, my experience has shown that your first impressions and your first reactions to seeing the photos is the absolute best guide to purchasing what's going to go on your wall. Because if it made you gasp and cry when you saw the gallery, when you saw that photo in the gallery, it's going to be the one that you're going to want on your wall, because you're going to continue to have that same reaction to it. But, you know, when you're in the moment, you're not thinking in terms of like evaluating which photo, and do I want a 20 by 30 or do I want a 16 by 20? So what this does is it gives me a chance to do the work for you, and you can just enjoy your photos. So, you can just tell them, like, what is the benefit? I do this session. It's absolutely mandatory. I don't, like, if you can't be here to do an in-person one, we have to do it over Skype so that I can make sure you get exactly the ones that made you gasp the first time. Of course, you can change your mind, but I want to make sure that you get the best service possible. And this is a way that will eliminate a lot of, like, back and forth down the road. So that's sort of like my in the moment, obviously would condense that a little bit, but telling people how it benefits them, like, I'm going to make sure you get the one that gave you the biggest emotional reaction so that you continue to get that out of your photos. Also telling them things like, it's tough to make decisions and make decisions between different things that you like. The hardest decision you can possibly ever make is between two things that you like, because it's like, well, which one do I go with? And say, so if I just give you a gallery, you're going to want to waffle forever. But if we just do it, you can get it done in 20 minutes. In less than the time it would take you to watch a sitcom, you'll have this done and over with, and you'll just get to enjoy your pictures. So I think just drawing from past experience, from other clients, and just explaining really clearly, like, it's not a surprise they're out-of-town client. Just say, for my out-of-town clients, this is how we handle it. And you can schedule that Skype session before they even leave the session, or you can schedule it at the same time you schedule your session even. You have the right to say, this is how I do it. Because it's not fair to you. And also, people kind of, in a way, people do what they're told. And if they're told that this is how we have to do it, you're going to get a higher percentage of people following through. Maybe not everybody, but most people will do it, especially if you're scheduling it at the same time and you're baking it in from the beginning. Like, you say, we schedule your session, then we schedule your Skype thing, and then I place your order. If you're introducing the idea from the beginning and having them schedule it from the beginning, it's much less like at the end, like, oh no, I'm busy, I don't want to do that, just send me a gallery. If you've set that expectation from the beginning. But Tammy has a great point. Like, I don't know if you're traveling for these sessions, but like, if they're coming to you, or if you're going to them, you can just say, look, I don't get a chance to do this in person. Requiring a down payment towards products is a valid thing to do. It just depends on what your business model is. Oh, sorry. Oh, Tammy's like, talk slower. Oh my gosh, it's my worst habit is I talk really fast. Tammy, there's going to be a recording. So you can just go back and listen to that recording. I'm so sorry if I was talking too fast. Okay. All right, we have 3 more minutes, and then I got to go. But, oh my gosh, thank you so much. If there's one last question I can answer real quick, I'm happy to. I'm also going to be here tomorrow from 1 to 3 EST. And I'm happy to keep talking. But if you came today and you think of something tonight, just email me the question. I can answer it tomorrow. You can get the recording. But thank you so much for being here. I absolutely love talking to you guys. You guys are the best. I am so thrilled that you are taking the time to think about this. I really think that working out your target clients and understanding what their needs are it's going to save you so much time, like figuring out how to word things, figuring out how, like, making the 1,000 choices you have to make every day as a business owner. So thank you so much for coming. I hope I see some of you tomorrow, but if not, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate and honor your time. So thank you.